I've been trying for a long time to make this happen. It's finally happening, so I'm really excited for this.
Thank you.
So perhaps I thought it would be a good idea just to start with, for people who don't know you in the audiences, who is Kamran Rizvi?
That's a very good question. I'm from the soil and I'm going to end up in this soil. That's something common to all of us. But in terms of who I am, that's a tough question. And the sense I have of myself is the journey that I've had ever since I came to this planet. I emerged on Earth back in 1958, April 26th. And till metric, I changed 11 schools in 5 cities. So you can imagine what a diverse set of experiences that has given me. The 5 cities included Geneva, Dhaka, Lahore, Karachi and Goragali. My early formative years, and I think that defines a person who doesn't have a comfort zone. So my comfort zone has become the planet itself and everyone living on it. The only barrier I find is language. I started my career soon after my O-levels and A-levels. I may have mentioned that I migrated to England with my family. I'm one of 4 siblings in 1972, and we were there for 20 years. In between, 1 year was in Abu Dhabi, where I started my career in 76, February, with a bank at the young age of 18, and was with the bank for 14 years. In between, I took a sabbatical for an MBA. I never went to an undergrad, I never did my undergrad.
Okay.
I went straight into masters, and it was a 1-year full-time MBA in Scotland, University of Strathclyde. I must say that I discovered more of my possibilities and who I am after doing my MBA. And it was not the MBA that did it. I think it was the fact that I was faced between a hard place and a rock. There was no way out. And this was in 1987. Getting into the master's program was a miracle in itself. And that's a separate chapter in a story, but I can share that if you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
But I do recall that 2 years prior, I performed Hajj in 1985. And I recall that, when you perform Hajj, there's a certain experience that you go through, and I didn't somehow get that high that one looks for.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that if one thing I can recollect from that experience was vanity, because like you are naturally endowed in the northern hemisphere. For me to shave my head, my hair off was a big challenge.
Right.
And I remember that was a struggle while I was in Saudi Arabia, after having performing the rituals that one does. An inner voice came that you're willing to give your life up for God, but you can't give up your hair.
Oh.
That inner voice, that question, made me realize what a liar, what a cheat I am.
Wow.
And that something that I know will come back better and will cause no pain, I'm not able to sacrifice. And that told me that vanity had such a strong hold on me, vanity. With that realization, and I had to be honest with God, I said, no. So I just, without thinking, went to the next camp where everyone was getting a tinned, getting their head shaved. I did the same. And 3 days went like heaven. Wake up in the morning, splash water on your face, and you're done. And you're done. Till I saw the mirror 3 days later. So that was the highlight of the Hajj experience for me. I conquered vanity at that point. At the university, doing my MBA, 2 months into the course, I realized that I'm in the wrong place. There's no way I can pass. I had 11 years of work experience, but I was academically very poor, and I just could not see myself get through the subjects like finance and quantitative methods and operations research, and the theory when it came to organizational behavior, marketing and stuff like that. It was mountains of literature, and there was no way I could do it. There was no way, and exams were coming. And I do recall, while I was in Glasgow and my family in London, that, where have I come? I mean, I can't fail, I can't pass. So the only route I have is to take my life. So, you know, I had hit the pit of depression. And I thank God that I wasn't courageous and I wasn't creative. Because if I was actively courageous and creative, I think I wouldn't be here.
Wow.
And it was my cowardice that saved me, I think. And what happened then, because I was trying to read a book, I read a page, it defeated me. I could not recall what I read. I had 150 books in my room because if I couldn't find one in the library, I would go and buy one. And there I was, very comfortable that I have the books. But then there's a saying that khote pe kitabe laad do, professor nahi banta. That I realized कि यार, if I can't even manage to make sense of a page, how do I go through this? So I decided to take my life. I went to the window. Fortunately, I was on the second floor and I looked down at night. And, you know, it was a very depressing sight. It was dark and dingy and damp. And all I saw in my head was that I'm in plaster. And I'm sitting in the exam hall taking the exam.
Wow.
So I'm in a worse situation than I am in right now. And I turned back and I cried and I then literally asked, if there is a God, then there is no issue. I've heard that Allah, can make anything possible. And for me, this is an impossibility. And I'll beseech Him, I'll beg to Him that help me through this. And I must have been in a cathartic state for about an hour or so, and begging, pleading, crying like I can't tell you, reading Surah Fatiha and whatever else. And then I recall that after that emotive experience, I just put my knees on the ground and my head on the bed. And I went to sleep. And I suppose about half an hour, 40 minutes, this is happening around 2 in the morning. So about an hour or so later, I wake up and I'm as light as a feather. I don't know, I'm just not having any of those dark clouds that I experienced, the emotions and the sadness that I was experiencing. It was just so light. And I automatically got up, sat on the same chair, picked the same book and the same page that had defeated me. And when I now read that page, it was so sharp, clear, high definition, and a scroll sort of in my head. Every line I read was just making sense. And at the end of that one page, I wrote, Allahu Akbar, God is great. And that's why I often say that even though I performed my Hajj in '85, I discovered God in Glasgow in 1987.
Wow.
So that night is the defining moment for me. In that, when I look at my life before 1987 and post 1987, chalk and cheese. And that's how different it is.
So you said you were moving around a lot as a kid. And I also remember when we were talking earlier, you said that that kind of had an adverse impact on you in the sense that because you were moving around so much, it was difficult to make friends, and that sort of made you an angry young boy or a man. How did you deal with that? Because there are a lot of kids out there right now who are, especially these days, kids are very entitled and they're very resentful and entitled, they don't want to take responsibility. But my question is how did you manage that at that time? And how did you turn it on its head and use it as fuel to power you?
You end up having support groups, and you become the company you keep. And I suppose what I used to gravitate towards was the easy way.
Okay.
And anyone offering the easy way was the way I would try to follow. And there were always in groups someone who's a gang leader.
Right.
And I always used to look up to people who were power figures and people of authority. And when they gave you the comfort, follow me and you're safe and you're okay, then that was it. So my criteria was looking for comfort.
Okay.
And looking for some comfort which would allow me to do what I want to do. So in my childhood, if I can just recall one very essential thing, which was that I wasn't fond of studies, And for me, that was a pain. I couldn't see any relevance of it. I used to go to school, but it was not something that I see kids doing now, learning. I wasn't learning. I was just going through the grind. And yes, I made friends, but friends who were more truants than friends who were studious. And as a result, my destructive tendencies and a negative attitude and bitterness about the world and disrespect of life around me was pretty pronounced. And I'm speaking of this during my till my high school.
Okay.
But I recall that I would be more comfortable in company that would be licentious and speeding and breaking the rules and mocking individuals. In summary, I think I was rebellious and had no goals, very destructive. And I think the duality also crept in, because in front of my parents I was the most obedient and the most well-mannered kid, and outside of my family, amongst my friends and circle, I would be the most destructive and rebellious. Thank God we moved to England.
Right.
Because that's when I found a cataclysmic change happening. I realized that you need to be respectful. In Pakistan, I wasn't, and respectful of people around you.
Right.
And that if you are in a cab, you pay the meter, and you don't argue. When there's a cop who stops you, police officer, he's not a tullah. And so respect for authority, respect for human life, respect for discipline. And I couldn't, in Pakistan, I would drive around without a license. There, you couldn't even dream of doing that.
Yeah.
In Pakistan, I would cheat in exams. I mean, for me, cheating in Islamiyat. I mean, I cheated in Islamiyat. Ma'am, I don't know the answer to this. Could you help me? And the invigilator guided me through. And I remember that, cheating was, was actually a heroic thing to do. You manage to cheat and you get a result, and you say, hey, listen, you couldn't do it. So that was my orientation here, but none of this was possible in England. So I felt as though I was thrown into a prison of sorts, where all my freedoms were taken away. And there again, I discovered when we were there that racism.
Right.
I wasn't familiar with this concept, but I came to be known as Paki in school. And the neighborhood that my parents chose to live in was more a mixed neighborhood.
Okay.
So I think England was a very formative experience. But there again, I had become very dogmatic in the sense that when I joined this bank in '76, the founder of the bank, Agha Hassan Abdi Marhoom, he was very spiritual in his thinking. Mysticism was his. And he would follow some Sufi traditions as well. And being young and idealistic, one fell for it. And I must say that working in that organization, which had a global vision, made me realize that, hey, this is the place to be.
Just connected to this story, I feel a sense of vulnerability that you don't seem to feel while sharing your story. And I love that even when we spoke earlier. And especially living in this society, we're very concerned about like, wo kya kahega, or what's he or she gonna say or think or do. And that paralyzes us. I've been through this. A lot of people go through this. So if someone is stuck in that situation, how
Not
can they
someone, quite a few.
yeah,
Quite
like
a
how
few.
can they break out of this and start taking action and not care about what others are going to say or think?
You hit rock bottom, it is very difficult to snap out.
Right.
For instance, even heart patients, I mean, their life before the heart attack and post-surgery tends to be very different. So near-death experiences are a blessing, oddly enough, that snap people out of this delusion
Right.
that we live.
Right.
Okay, what will they think or what will they say? Because if you're insecure, you will secure yourself, you'll protect yourself. And ego is a shell that helps us do that.
Right.
And anything that threatens my ego is extremely worrying.
having ego can be healthy also. Like we need some ego to sort of like operate, but investing too much in persona and ego can get in the way and be fatal and delude us, like you said. Are there any like exercises, mental narratives, practices that people can take if they want to actually break those layers, break that ego, stop investing in the ego, and actually create value and actually do the meaningful things, or actually start living a moral life, a good life? Like, what can someone do if they're stuck?
This is not reality. Reality is what will dawn upon us when we depart from here.
Wow.
You know, so for me, we are living the ultimate virtual reality. Now, once we get into that mindset, then this question of ego becomes slightly put aside, because self-respect is important, self-esteem is important.
Right.
But if you think about it, ego becomes an impediment when you see others less than you, and if it transforms into arrogance. If you have respect and regard for all human beings and you do not see them less than you in whatever dimension you choose to look at, whether it's wealth or knowledge or looks or status in society or births and the tribe, then you have conquered your ego.
Wow.
It's when you start elevating people around you to a point where you see them as different from you, but you give them the same regard as you would give yourself.
That's so powerful.
But the moment you become demeaning and insulting of others, I think that's when our ego takes a hold, and its ugly side is arrogance.
Wow.
And arrogance is nothing but seeing others as less than you in some way or another. Sometimes our poverty can lead to arrogance. Like Gandhi, when he went to Buckingham Palace with a goat, it is described as, wow, what a hero. But please, if you're in Buckingham Palace and you're meeting the Queen, be respectful enough to meet her on her turf, in her terms.
Right.
That is respect. I thought that very heroic gesture was arrogance, in my view.
I just want to take this conversation in a little different direction. You seem to get so much done, and we all get the same amount of time every day.
Sure.
1,440 minutes, standard, 24 hours. And a lot of people struggle with managing their time to get things that actually require their attention. What's your take on time generally, and are there any tools, tactics, or strategies that people can leverage just
Sure.
to make changes to get most done?
I'm so happy you asked this question because, again, like reality, we live virtual reality, and I'm looking forward to the other reality, which inshallah I'll discover when I get there, and we'll all get there, inshallah. Coming to time, time is life, and time is a phenomena that even God swears by in Surah Wal-Asr. So by Allah swearing by time, He's conveying to us how important time is. So you just said something, which is that we all have 24 hours in a day. I don't agree with that at all. We don't. We have as many hours as we want. How? When we delegate. So for example, at this point in time, you have got my time, Ibrahim's time,
And
Afzal's time, Imad is sitting there, his time. If we add up our time, you have it all at your disposal because
Wow.
you're producing a program. So right now we don't have your 3 hours. We have 15 or 20 hours. So when a Prime Minister addresses the nation on television, he may speak for what, 30 minutes? But if 10 million people are watching live, he's accountable for those 30 minutes multiplied by 10 million. And if he's 15 minutes late, 15 minutes multiplied by the 10 million, he's accountable for that. So time is very precious. So when you are speaking or I'm speaking and anyone is watching this video, do you realize that your program, as many people watching, they're investing their time in that program. So frankly, I'm not accountable for these few minutes that I'm spending with you. Any person who watches this program I'm accountable for that. So in Pakistan, we don't have any shortage of time. We have 220 million people
Yeah.
times 8
Yeah.
a day. Wow, with that time, what can we accomplish? Provided, of course, we are guided. Now, this realization doesn't exist.
In your life's work, your passion has been developing the human factor.
Yes.
What do you mean by that for people who don't know?
You know, when we speak of human factor, it's about how do you bring humanity at the workplace? How do we make sure that fairness is truly exhibited in the decisions we make, not only fairness to our colleagues, but to our markets, to our environment. Look at the abusive exploitation of our environment, the climate change that we experience. Developing the human factor is to bring humanity to the workplace and insaniyat. And what is insaniyat? Insaniyat is a huge subject, so huge that the Quran is about insaniyat. And Sahib-e-Quran is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I feel developing the human factor commences with awareness of self and others, awareness of the environment, and the fact that we are not lacking in anything. We are abundantly endowed. Surah Rahman, Pabe Ayya Alai Rabbikuma Tukazziban. And that as agents of goodness on this planet, we need to create workplaces which leverage the best out of people, where people not only are valued, but they also experience dignity and have a voice and don't work in fear.
Wow.
So that is developing the human factor. You know, to see decency and transparency, openness, integrity at work. And nothing is more beautiful than that.
This country is 60% young people, and a lot of them have emotional challenges, mental health challenges.
Oh, yes.
That they can never talk about.
Yes.
I've been through this. I suffered depression myself, and as a result of that, like I'm diving into this stuff to help people out. But what I want to ask is, what can people learn from depression and pain and suffering? And there are people out there who are stuck right now, terribly, and they don't know what sense to make out of that. What would you say to them?
First of all, see the movie Joker. I mean, if you haven't, and our viewers have not seen Joker, they should. Joaquin is a remarkable character in that. And I think the reason why it resonated and won the awards was simply because it brought to surface what you've just mentioned. Mental health is a severe condition, and it is afflicting many around the world, not just in Pakistan. And what we need is an empathetic society which is sincere and genuinely listens and does something about it. And the way he is dismissed by the rituals and protocols, it's unbelievable. The height of insensitivity to such individuals. Those who don't fall in the frame are just discarded, or we pretend they don't exist. But they do. And I think that those who are in that condition, in that situation, my only feeling is that I wish they could find a friend they can talk to. Because when you are struggling, you need someone that you can confide in. And I have a feeling that friends come in handy at a time when you're in the pits. And if you can speak to someone who listens without judging and who tries to feel your pain and is not sympathizing with you but empathizing with you, I think there could be nothing better. Because unless you express what you're going through, you can't come out of it. That's for sure. And therapy is largely about getting people to express what they're going through. It is when you bring it to the surface that you can do something about it. So there are emotions that we go through, the pain, the trauma, and so much else. It has to be expressed. If it is bottled up, it becomes toxic inside, and it really crowds the mind. You know, when people are angry, when they are in a rage, It's a psychological vomit. But we respond not in the way that we respond to someone who's vomiting physically. We take it as a personal attack. And as a result, what happens is that we, tit for tat begins,
Right.
and things get worse.
Right.
So we need listeners in our society.
Right.
That's the first thing. And now, in terms of how I deal with it, faith is the key word. For me, and I can only say this for myself because everyone finds his or her own way, and there's plenty of literature out there. But faith is what gives rise to hope. And कहते हैं ना कि उम्मीद ईमान की हरारत है. And if I'm hopeless, it's because I don't have faith. And faith is something beyond empirical evidence. You either have it or you don't. So faith in self, faith in others, faith in the future. Things will get better. Very topical, coronavirus. We're all, the globe is afflicted by it. It's a pandemic. I have faith we'll come through it. Now, is there any evidence that's supporting my view? No. But I have faith we'll come through it. Despair and despondency and depression is what? It's a sense of hopelessness. And there is a vicious cycle. I went somewhere, I was turned away. I went to another door, I was turned away. Now I believe this is the end of it. There is no way out. Now when I get to that point, there is no way out, and I start believing it, that's when I'm in a very dangerous zone. I learned this in Glasgow. I was in that same situation. But when I turned to God, you can turn to God or anyone you believe in. It is faith that takes you out of any darkness that you may be
I
confronted.
love that. And do you think, like, having laid that foundation that you just spoke about, having faith, and maybe like, is maybe taking on more responsibility and cultivating discipline an antidote to that, an extension of that as well?
Interesting. I mean, when we talk of faith, it's not as abstract as we think, because awareness makes us responsible. And when we are responsible, we become effective. And responsibility is a state of zero blame. If I blame someone else for my condition or my setback, then I'm not being responsible. So the key to growth is responsibility. And that comes from awareness. And if I want to rise in my career, or if I want to achieve a more significant role in society, then I just need to take more responsibility, which means that not only am I answerable for myself, but those who are with me. So the more responsibility I'm taking, the more I'm able to impact society, and more effective I will be. And why would I do that if I don't have faith? So responsibility is very closely linked with discipline, because if I won't be disciplined, I won't be able to fulfill my responsibilities with freedom. And I might add that freedom and discipline go hand in hand.
Wow.
A school of leadership, for example, has its vision as freedom with discipline.
Okay, wow.
Freedom without discipline is anarchy, and discipline without freedom is slavery.
I love that.
Yeah. So if you combine the two, that's what brings that amazing power of effectiveness and efficiency and inspiration. So I want to be free. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. But I can only be as free as I am disciplined. They're just interdependent. If I am indisciplined, I'll lose my freedom.
Wow.
And you've seen a lot of examples in life of people who were indisciplined and are, as a result, denied their freedom. Prisons are full of them.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that. Before I ask my last question, where can people
Of this
find...
session,
Yes. Where can people connect with you online?
I have a Twitter account,
Okay.
LinkedIn,
Okay.
Facebook page.
Okay.
I would recommend that. And my personal website has my books, also some articles,
Okay.
and recommended reading, movies, kzr.co. I do meet on Sunday mornings as my personal social responsibility with any individual no matter what he or she would want to discuss with respect to what we have been talking about or anything else in the future, Sunday mornings, but they've got to email me, and my email is also given on my website.
For my last question, what's the impact you want to have on the world?
I've already, by being here, I've had an impact, and you have had an impact, and we all have had an impact. I want God to be happy with whatever I've done and to forgive my sins, and so that when I go to the next world, I'm directed towards heaven. I mean, if I can achieve that, I feel I've lived my life as I should have. I'm a sinner, I'm not a saint, and I honestly believe that God is most kind and most merciful. I have faith in His mercy, and I have faith in His kindness, and He knows deep down in my heart I mean well for everyone and anyone on this planet. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a blessing for mankind and is a blessing for mankind. And being a Muslim and being his follower, the least I can do is view everyone with the same lens.
Wow.
Yeah. So if I can only have a clean heart towards everyone and not see anyone less than me, no matter what faith they belong to, I think that in itself would hopefully, and I believe God will forgive me my sins. So the impact, I feel life is impact.
Wow.
Life is impact, and you're doing a great job, particularly meeting people and sharing with your viewers perspectives, different perspectives, and I'm very honored that you gave me the opportunity as well.
Thank you, guys. I can't stress enough. I know I'm going to rewatch this episode so many times, and I recommend you guys do also, and dive into his world. Kamran Rizvi, this episode has been so powerful. I'm still overwhelmed. Until next time, goodbye.